Hello and welcome. Tonight you are invited to rest and to listen to a soft, unhurried science story about planets and their orbits. There is nothing you need to remember and nothing you need to understand fully. You can simply listen and let the words fade into the background as your body begins to rest. Let's begin by noticing your breath without changing it yet. Just notice the quiet movement of air as it enters and leaves your body. If it feels comfortable, you can slowly inhale through your nose and gently exhale through your mouth. There is no counting and no effort, just a soft rhythm that feels natural to you. Now, bring your attention to your forehead, allowing it to smooth and soften. Let your jaw relax, your tongue resting easily, and your shoulders gently sinking downward as if they are no longer holding anything up. Your chest and your abdomen rise and fall with each calm breath. Your legs feel heavy, supported, and completely at rest. If your mind begins to wander, that is perfectly okay. You do not need to bring it back. Just let it drift, like a thought passing quietly by. Tonight's story is about planets and the slow, steady paths they follow as they move through space. We will keep everything simple and gentle. There will be no equations, no numbers to remember, and no pressure to understand every detail. You can think of this as listening to a calm explanation spoken softly, meant to be comforting rather than instructive. As you rest here, you might imagine yourself lying still while faraway planets continue their quiet journeys, moving in predictable, repeating patterns. These motions have been happening for billions of years, unchanged by our attention, calm, reliable, and steady. And as you listen, you do not need to follow every word. You can simply let the sound of the voice carry you gently towards sleep. When you are ready, we will slowly begin by talking about one simple idea: what an orbit is. An orbit is a path that one object follows as it moves around another. In space, many objects are in motion at the same time. Planets move around stars, moons move around planets, and smaller objects follow gentle paths of their own. An orbit is not a solid track, and it is not a visible line. It is simply a description of a repeated motion that happens again and again in a calm and predictable way. You do not need to picture it clearly. You can let the idea remain soft and almost abstract. One of the most important things to know is that an orbit is not about being held in place. Planets are not suspended, and they are not being pulled straight inward. Instead, they are always moving forward while also being gently drawn inward at the same time. This balance between motion and attraction creates a smooth path that continues naturally. Nothing needs to be adjusted, and nothing needs to be corrected. Once an orbit is established, it can remain stable for very long periods of time, for millions of years, or even billions. You can think of an orbit only as an image and not as a perfect comparison, like a stone moving across still water. As the stone moves forward, it also curves gently inward toward the center. This image is not exact, but it can help your mind relax into the idea of continuous motion. In space, there is no water and no surface, only movement and gentle attraction shaping quiet paths. What makes orbits comforting is their regularity. They repeat without effort and without awareness. A planet does not decide where to go next. It simply follows the same calm path again and again and again. And as you rest here, you can allow your breathing to become just as steady, in and out. Nothing needs to change, and nothing needs to improve, just repetition and rest. Soon we will talk gently about the force that makes these paths possible. Gravity. To understand orbits, we need to talk about gravity, but only in a very gentle way. Gravity is not something you need to picture clearly. You do not need equations, numbers, or diagrams. You can think of gravity simply as a quiet attraction between objects that have mass. Anything with mass, no matter how small, has gravity. And anything with more mass has a little more of it. The Sun contains most of the mass in our solar system. Because of this, its gravitational influence extends far into space. Planets do not move randomly. They respond to this steady attraction. As they travel forward, gravity gently curves their motion into long, smooth paths around the Sun. Nothing sudden happens, and nothing pulls sharply. The motion remains calm and continuous. It may feel natural to think of gravity as something that only works in one direction, but in reality, gravity is always mutual. The Sun pulls on the planets, and the planets also pull on the Sun. The difference is in how much they move. Because the Sun is so massive, its motion is very small and slow. This shared interaction keeps the entire system balanced and stable. Once a planet settles into an orbit, it does not need constant correction. There is no ongoing adjustment and no steering. As long as the system remains undisturbed, the motion can continue for extraordinary lengths of time. This stability is one of the reasons our solar system has remained recognizable for billions of years, quietly repeating the same gentle movements. As you listen, you do not need to hold on to these ideas. You can let the word gravity fade into the background like a distant concept. What matters is the sense of steadiness and balance, movement guided without force, and attraction without effort. And as these motions continue in space, you can allow your own body to become still. A little later, we will talk softly about the shape of these paths and why orbits are often gently curved. When we talk about orbits, we often imagine circles, and in many cases, that image is close enough to feel comfortable. But in reality, most orbits are not perfect circles. They are slightly stretched, gentle curves that repeat calmly over time. These shapes are called ellipses. You do not need to remember that word. You can simply think of a path that is almost round, but not exactly. In an elliptical orbit, the Sun is not at the center. Instead, it rests slightly off to one side at a position scientists call a focus. This does not change the calm nature of the motion. It simply means that at some moments a planet is a little closer, and at other moments a little farther away. The change is gradual, and nothing sudden occurs. The path remains smooth, predictable, and stable. As a planet moves along its orbit, its speed can change slightly. When it is closer to the Sun, it moves a little faster. When it is farther away, it moves a little more slowly. This happens naturally, without effort and without control. The motion adjusts itself in a quiet and balanced way. This behavior was carefully observed and described by early astronomers based on real measurements made over many years. What matters most is not the exact shape of the orbit. What matters is its regularity. Elliptical orbits repeat over and over with the same rhythm. This repetition is what allows planetary systems to remain calm and long-lasting. Predictable motion creates stability, and stability creates quiet. If it helps, you can imagine a slow walk around a familiar path. Sometimes the path curves gently inward, sometimes it opens outward, but it always leads you back to where you began. This is only an image and not a perfect comparison. In space, there is no ground and no footsteps, only motion guided by gravity and repeating without awareness. You do not need to hold on to the idea of ellipses. You do not need to picture the path or follow its curve. You can let the details fade and keep only the feeling of smooth movement repeating without effort. As planets continue their quiet journeys, you can allow your thoughts to become just as gentle and unstructured. In the next part, we will begin a very slow journey through the planets of our solar system, one by one, without hurry. We will begin with Mercury. Mercury is the planet closest to the Sun. It moves along a short orbit, circling quickly compared to the other planets. A year on Mercury is much shorter than a year on Earth. This faster motion is a natural result of being closer to the Sun's gravity. Nothing is rushed, just a shorter path repeated calmly. Because Mercury is so close to the Sun, it experiences large changes in temperature. When sunlight reaches its surface, it can become very warm. And when night arrives and sunlight fades, the surface cools dramatically. This happens not because Mercury is unusual, but because it has very little atmosphere to hold on to heat. Without a thick blanket of air, temperatures change quickly. Mercury rotates very slowly. A single day on Mercury lasts much longer than a day on Earth. Because of this, sunlight lingers over the same regions for extended periods of time, and then darkness does the same. The rhythm is slow and steady, unconcerned with anything else. Despite its extremes, Mercury follows its orbit with remarkable consistency. It does not drift away, and it does not wander. Its motion remains predictable, guided by gravity, and repeated without awareness. As Mercury continues its quiet journey close to the Sun, you can allow your attention to drift gently. There is no need to compare and no need to remember details. Just the sense of a small world moving calmly along a familiar path. Now we move a little farther from the Sun to Venus. From a distance, Venus appears bright, often shining clearly in the early morning or the evening sky. But as we draw closer, the planet becomes quietly hidden beneath thick layers of cloud. Nothing on Venus is sharply outlined. Light scatters and softens as it passes through the dense atmosphere. Venus is surrounded by an atmosphere much thicker than Earth's. This atmosphere is rich in carbon dioxide and filled with clouds made of tiny droplets. Because of this thickness, heat is held close to the planet's surface. Over long periods of time, this trapped heat has led to extremely high surface temperatures. This is not sudden and not dramatic. It is the quiet result of simple physical processes repeating steadily over millions of years. Venus turns very slowly on its axis. A single day on Venus lasts longer than an entire year on that planet. Its rotation is also in the opposite direction from most other planets. This motion is not chaotic. It is stable and consistent, even if it feels unfamiliar. The planet keeps its rhythm without awareness or effort. Despite its dense clouds and intense heat, Venus follows its orbit with calm precision. It moves smoothly around the Sun on a nearly circular path. Nothing about its motion is rushed. Everything unfolds slowly, predictably, and without change. As Venus continues its gentle journey wrapped in cloud, you can let your thoughts become just as soft and diffuse. There is nothing you need to see clearly. Just rest and listen. And now we arrive at Earth. From space, Earth appears calm and softly illuminated by reflected sunlight. It moves along its orbit just like the other planets, following the same physical rules with no awareness of what happens on its surface. Earth is not perfectly still and not perfectly centered. It travels smoothly and predictably around the Sun once each year. One of the reasons Earth's surface looks the way it does is the presence of liquid water. Water exists here because temperatures remain within a certain range for long periods of time. This balance is not fragile and not exact. It is maintained by the distance from the Sun, the atmosphere, and the way Earth rotates. Nothing needs to be adjusted moment by moment. The system responds naturally to energy and motion. Earth rotates slowly and steadily on its axis. This rotation creates day and night. As one side of the planet faces the Sun, the other side rests in darkness. This cycle repeats without interruption, creating a regular rhythm that has continued for billions of years. Earth's orbit is nearly circular, which helps maintain relatively stable conditions. Small variations occur, but the overall pattern remains consistent. There is no need to describe this as perfect. It is simply stable enough to continue over very long timescales. As Earth follows its familiar path, you can allow your own body to settle into stillness, supported and at rest. Now we move farther outward to Mars. Mars is smaller than Earth and receives less warmth from the Sun. Its surface appears dry and quiet, with wide-open landscapes and thin air. Mars follows its orbit at a greater distance, moving more slowly as it travels around the Sun. Mars has an atmosphere, but it is much thinner than Earth's. Because of this, heat escapes easily and temperatures remain low across most of the planet. Winds still move and dust can be lifted, but the air holds very little warmth. Sound would travel poorly here, and movement would feel muted. The planet feels open and exposed beneath the sky. In some regions, scientists have found evidence that liquid water once flowed on the surface of Mars. This evidence comes from patterns in rock and changes in the landscape that form slowly in the presence of water. These observations suggest that Mars was once warmer and wetter than it is today. This is not speculation. It is based on measured data and careful study. Today, Mars remains cold and dry. Its orbit continues unchanged, steady and predictable. Nothing is being restored, and nothing is being lost. The planet simply follows its familiar path through space. As Mars moves onward, you can let your thoughts thin out, becoming lighter and more distant. Between the orbit of Mars and the orbit of Jupiter, there is a wide region known as the Asteroid Belt. This region is often imagined as crowded and chaotic, but in reality, it is mostly empty space. Asteroids are spread out over very large distances, with vast gaps between them. Most of the time, nothing passes close to anything else. Asteroids are small, solid bodies made of rock and metal. They are leftovers from the early formation of the solar system. They are not broken pieces of a destroyed planet. Instead, they are material that never gathered together into a single world. Each one follows its own quiet orbit around the Sun. Despite how they are shown in movies and stories, the asteroid belt is not a place of constant movement. There are no frequent collisions and no sudden changes. The asteroids move slowly and predictably, guided by gravity just like the planets. Most of the belt is calm and undisturbed for very long periods of time. As you imagine this region, you might notice how quiet it feels. There are large distances, gentle motion, and long stretches of empty space. There is nothing pressing in and nothing crowded, just room and time and stillness. Now we arrive at Jupiter. Jupiter is the largest planet in the solar system. It moves along a wide orbit farther from the Sun than the inner planets. Its journey takes longer and its pace is slower. From a distance, Jupiter appears calm, banded and softly colored, with no solid surface in sight. Jupiter is made mostly of hydrogen and helium. There is no solid ground to stand on. Instead, its atmosphere deepens gradually, layer by layer, becoming denser with depth. Clouds move slowly in long bands, circling the planet again and again. These motions are steady, not chaotic and not sudden. Because of its size, Jupiter has a strong gravitational influence. This influence extends far into space, affecting nearby objects and shaping their paths. Many smaller bodies respond to this presence without awareness or resistance. The system remains balanced through quiet interaction and long-term stability. Jupiter continues its orbit unchanged, reliable and steady. Its movement does not rush, and it does not pause. It simply follows the same wide path through space, year after year. As you listen, you can allow this sense of steadiness to settle into your body, large, slow, and supported. And we move outward again to Saturn. Saturn travels along a wide and quiet orbit far from the Sun. Its motion is slow and unhurried, taking many years to complete a single journey. From a distance, Saturn appears soft, pale, and balanced against the dark background of space. Saturn is surrounded by a system of rings. These rings are made of countless small pieces of ice and rock. Each piece follows its own orbit around the planet. They do not form a single solid structure. Instead, they create a pattern through repetition and motion. The result is a quiet and orderly system moving together without contact or intention. Like Jupiter, Saturn is composed mostly of light gases. There is no solid surface, only gradual changes in pressure and density with depth. Clouds move slowly, wrapping around the planet in smooth bands. Everything flows in wide arcs and long curves. Nothing is sharp and nothing is sudden. Saturn continues its slow orbit year after year, unchanged and predictable. Its rings remain aligned with its motion, repeating their paths again and again. As you imagine this steady rhythm, you can allow your breathing to follow the same pattern, slow, even, and unforced. As this quiet continues, we travel even farther from the warmth of the Sun to the outer planets. Here, light becomes faint and motion feels slower. Uranus and Neptune move along wide, distant orbits, taking many decades to complete a single journey. At this distance, time feels stretched and quiet. These planets are often called ice giants. They are made mostly of gases and icy materials like water, ammonia, and methane under great pressure. There is no solid surface to rest upon. Instead, the atmosphere deepens gradually, layer by layer, as you move inward. Everything here feels diffuse and distant. Uranus rotates in a way that feels unusual. Its axis is tilted so far that it appears to roll along its orbit. This creates very long seasons, lasting many years at a time. Neptune moves more quietly farther still, with winds high in its atmosphere and a deep blue color caused by methane. These details are subtle and easy to let pass. As Uranus and Neptune continue their distant paths, the solar system begins to feel wide and quiet. The planets are now far apart, their movements slow, and their presence faint. You do not need to remember their names or their details. You can simply notice the sense of distance and stillness spreading outward. Beyond these planets, space opens further and becomes even calmer. And soon, we will allow our attention to drift freely, without structure. Now, after moving through the planets, we can gently return to the idea of orbits. Everything we have visited continues to move even when we are not paying attention. Planets circle their stars, and moons circle their planets. Motion continues without awareness, without effort, and without change. These movements are not random. They follow patterns that repeat over and over again. In many systems, motion settles into rhythms. Paths repeat, and timing remains steady. This repetition does not require control. It happens naturally when forces are balanced. An orbit does not need guidance. Once established, it continues on its own. The same is true for many calm processes in nature. Sometimes these repeating motions align with one another in simple ways. Scientists call this resonance. This does not mean vibration or energy or anything mysterious. It simply describes a relationship between repeated motions that remain stable over time. When patterns fit together, they tend to last. Nothing needs to adjust, and nothing needs to respond. The system remains calm because the rhythm is familiar. Stability often feels quiet. When motion is predictable, there is no urgency, no correction, and no surprise. The solar system has followed these rhythms for billions of years without interruption. And as you listen, your breathing may begin to follow a similar pattern, in and out, repeating without effort. You do not need to hold on to the idea of resonance. You do not need to picture orbits or paths or timing. You can allow the patterns to fade, leaving only a sense of gentle repetition. Movement continues without thought. Balance is maintained without effort. From here, we will slow even further and let the mind drift freely. One of the simplest rhythms in our solar system is the rhythm of day and night. As Earth turns slowly on its axis, one side faces the sun, while the other rests in darkness. This motion is continuous. It does not pause. Day becomes night, and night becomes day. The cycle repeats again and again without effort. Earth's rotation is calm and reliable. It does not speed up, and it does not slow down. This steady turning creates a sense of regularity that has existed for billions of years. Even as everything else changes, this motion remains largely the same. A quiet background rhythm supporting life without calling attention to itself. Over longer periods of time, another rhythm appears, the rhythm of the seasons. As Earth travels around the sun, its axis remains gently tilted. This tilt causes different parts of the planet to receive different amounts of sunlight at different times of the year. There is no sudden shift. The change is gradual. Seasons arrive and pass in slow transitions. Some rhythms last a single day, Others last many months or many years. As cycles become longer, they feel quieter. They do not demand attention. They simply continue in the background. You do not need to follow them, and you do not need to notice each change. They unfold whether you are aware of them or not. As you rest here, you may notice that time feels different. Moments stretch and thoughts slow. The steady rhythms of rotation and orbit continue quietly, while your attention softens and loosens. There is nothing to keep track of and nothing to measure, just slow time moving gently forward. Soon, we will let go of explanation entirely and drift without structure. Far beyond the planets we know, there are many other stars. And around some of those stars, there are planets as well. These planets are called exoplanets. They do not belong to our solar system. They travel around distant suns, far away and mostly unseen. We cannot usually see these distant planets directly. Instead, scientists notice small changes in the light of stars. Sometimes a planet passes in front of its star and the light dims just a little. Other times, the star itself moves very slightly, responding to the planet's gravity. These measurements are careful and precise, based on repeated observation. There is no guessing and no imagination required. There are thousands of known exoplanets, and likely many more still undiscovered. Some are large and some are small. Some orbit closely, and others move far away on long, slow paths. Each one follows the same physical principles we have already talked about: gravity, motion, and repetition. At these distances, details become less important. We do not need to know what these planets look like or what their surfaces are like. It is enough to know that they exist, moving quietly around their stars, far away, without sound and without light reaching us for many years. As you listen, you might notice how large space feels. There are so many systems moving independently, each with its own rhythm. There is no need to track them and no need to imagine them clearly, just the sense of a vast, quiet universe continuing calmly while you rest. From here, we will stop explaining and allow the mind to drift freely. Now there is nothing new to learn, only familiar ideas returning softly. Planets move in their orbits. Gravity holds paths together. Motion repeats without effort. You do not need to picture them, and you do not need to follow. They can remain in the background, like distant thoughts that no longer ask for attention. Orbits repeat again and again. Paths curve gently and return to where they began. Nothing changes quickly, and nothing asks for action. The same movements continue without awareness and without intention. As you listen, your thoughts may begin to slow and separate, appearing and then fading without effort. Words can soften now. Sentences can drift without needing to connect. Gravity, motion, and time become just sounds passing through and dissolving. If you miss a word, that is perfectly fine. If you miss many, even better. Your mind knows how to rest without instruction. Everything continues without you needing to follow it. The planets keep moving, and the orbits remain steady. And you do not need to go anywhere. Your body is supported. Your breathing is slow and natural. There is nothing to finish and nothing to reach. Just rest, spreading gently through each moment. Now there is no need for full sentences, only gentle sounds appearing and fading. Breathing is slow and steady, in and out. Nothing else needs attention. You do not need to understand or remember anything. Words can pass without forming ideas. Thoughts can loosen and drift away before they finish. Everything important is already taken care of. Movement continues somewhere far away. Orbits remain steady and unchanging. Time moves forward without effort, and you are free to rest without awareness. The voice becomes softer and lighter. Pauses grow longer. Words appear less often. Rest deepens naturally. There is nothing to follow and nothing to hold. Just space and stillness. Breath, pause, and sleep.